Well, welcome to my workshop. My name is Harper Carr. We're doing the Manger Project this year for St. David's, and this is how you do it. You should have a kit that you've gotten, and in your kit you should have 4 legs. I have the smaller desktop kit here. The parts are the same for the large one, they're just larger. So you should have 4 legs. These should be about 3/4 inch by a 1/2 inch and just under 1 foot long. The ones for the full-size kit should be 2 feet long and 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. You should have 2 triangle pieces, which will be the ends of the manger. You should also have 4 long rectangular pieces, which will be the sides of the manger. And one thing you'll need to notice is that on these, they've already got holes drilled in them, but 2 of them will have holes in the very corners. Those will be for the bottom part. And the other 2 will have holes in the corners, and then the other hole in it will be slightly off towards the center, but not quite. Those will be for the tops, and I'll show you why that is. Because we also have nails that we're using to assemble this. And this piece would fit at the top like this. Well, let's do it this way. If we took one of the other pieces. If we put the nail through right here, and then nailed it right into the side, it would stick through the top. So you offset the hole, it'll go through, it'll be just fine. The dimensions for these are about just under 1 foot, and the large ones, they'll be 2 feet long and about 5.5 inches wide. You should also have a supply of nails, and you should also have some sandpaper. I've already sanded these because the only thing more boring than sanding is watching someone else sand, so we don't want to do that. But what you should do is take just some of your sandpaper, get all the rough spots off of it, get the ends real good. The other thing you'll want to do is get the corners of these pieces, because if you just feel them, they'll feel almost sharp, like a knife, and you don't want that. So just sand everything real well. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 end pieces, we're going to set them about as far apart as this, because they get the side pieces get nailed onto the ends this way. Your instructions say to do the top one first. That's a little janky, simply because the pieces may not be exactly the right size, and you could get a situation where you couldn't get the bottom ones to fit. So we don't want that. So we're going to do it just a little bit differently. We're going to do the bottom part first. And since it's upside down, it's actually the top, but don't get too confused. So one thing you'll immediately notice is holding this together is kind of hard, because as soon as you do this, it wants to fall. That's a problem. But there is a solution. So what we're going to do, we're going to take 4 of our nails, and we're going to take one of the pieces that has the holes in the corners, and we're going to drive the nails just flat on a work surface. Maybe not the dining room table. Mom may not like that. That's why I'm here on my workbench. I can put holes in it. We'll tap those until the very tip of it just pokes out a little bit. And we'll do that with all of them. And if you hang it over the end like this, you can do it without damaging whatever you're working on. That's too much. And if you do one too far, just turn it over, tap it out a little bit. No big deal. Okay, so that looks good. Now we've got our nails sticking out a little bit on all 4 corners. That's a little high. Now what we can do is we can go back to here, set those up, and we'll kind of get this one lined up. And just use your fingers to line it up with the edges, and line it up with the edge here and this side with the edge here. And then just kind of give it a little push. And then do the same thing over here. But now you'll notice, as if by magic, this one stays in place. And we do the same thing, just give it a little push, and it all stays. Now we can just hold this in place. Be sure not to hit your fingers too much. You're gonna do it anyway, so you might as well get it over with. And drive those nails in. Once the first one's in, you can adjust this a little bit, maybe to make sure it lines up really nicely. Get that back, and then we'll do this one. Now we'll flip it over, and we'll do that whole thing again. Drive the nails in. And now we'll do the same thing. We'll line this up here. This time we don't want to line it up with this edge because then it'll all be off-centered and wrong. We just kind of want to line it up with the edge, this top edge here of the side piece. And then line it up just with your fingers. And then give it and press it in. And it should stay. And then the same thing over here. And it all stays together. And that's what you should have so far. Just the bottom half of your manger done. Now we have to add the top pieces on. So this is where you take the ones that have the hole in the funny position. And this time we do the same thing. But we need to make sure that the hole that's in the very corner, this hole, is against the other piece of wood. Way too much. So, like this. And as you're looking at it, from your point of view, there should be a larger space at the bottom away from you. Now we hold it in place. Sometimes as you're hammering things in, it'll kind of work it, a nail can work itself out. So just be mindful of that. And now the same thing over on the other piece. That is so weird. And the same thing on this one, just make sure that the gap, this larger opening here, is away from you. And then just push it in place, it holds itself basically, and drive the nails home. And there's the top of your manger done. Now we have to put the legs on. So to do the legs, we will need 4 nails. We need 4 nails for each leg, so you'll need quite a few of them. And we're going to take 2 of our legs and just set them right there. And kind of, let me do it this way so you can see a little better. You want these just kind of on the inside of where the side piece ends right here. You want your leg to be on the inside of it. If you put your legs over here, you can't put the nails in. You could from the other side, but then you could run into problems where you're hitting these. So make sure it's offset just a little bit, and how much isn't super critical, but just kind of in there a little bit. Then what we will do, I'm going to have to turn this around so I can work on it. We'll take one of our nails and about, so I'm going to do this way. So just go in 1/2 inch or so. You don't want to do it right on the very edge because the wood can split out, which is a drag, and you don't really want that. And on this piece there's a crack right there. So if I put a nail right there, it would definitely split. So come in about 1/2 inch or so and try to do it sort of right in the middle of the leg if you can. And just put your nail in. And go like that. Now this is where I said if you have a square, it's handy but not necessary. You can line it up with the square just to make sure that it's all nice and straight. But really, as long as your legs aren't on there some kind of crazy thing like that, it's fine. So just kind of, eyeball it till it looks straight. My nails are actually just a bit too long. It pokes out. One thing that will help is if you have the other leg underneath it, because if it's like this, you're having to hammer it at an angle, it's going to want to walk around and get squirrely on you. Let's take another nail and just kind of go down in a line. Once your second, with just one nail in, this leg is free to move. But once your second one is in place, it won't do that. Now it's on there. And then we do the same thing with the other 2 nails. Now for the last 2 legs, we do the same thing, but this time, throw the bench dogs on the floor. It's a little more awkward to work with because there's the other legs in the way. So what we get around that is we'll just hang it off the side. So what you want to do with this one, it's the same basic thing, but there's a leg in the way here. So you have to make sure that this leg is sort of inside the other one. And you can tell we're doing this live. But once you get it lined up, just make sure it's reasonably straight. And then drive your nail, first nail on the top about a 1/2 inch down. And then just continue down the line like you did on the first one. That's your finished manger. This one went together just fine, but you may have some issues when you do yours. I kind of had one right here. You can see I got a nail kind of in the wrong place. If that happens and you want to fix it, you can just, if you put your piece down here, if you have access to the nail, you can just tap it back through a little bit, and then the head would be poked up, and you can just pull that one out with the claw and your hammer and just move it or leave it out, or whatever, however you want to deal with that. You may just have to move it over a little bit so you get more in the center of the leg. The other thing that may happen is when you're driving these in on the sides, the pilot holes should prevent it, but it can still happen. The wood may split. So what happens when wood splits is, basically the wood just splits in half. The fibers of the wood, the nail will go between all the individual fibers in the wood, and instead of like drilling a hole through them, they just goes and splits open. And it usually looks something like this. It's very susceptible at the very end of a board. If you're nailing something in the middle, it's less likely to happen. But on these end pieces, you can hammer in and it'll do that. See how it's split right there? And actually, if you went in this way, it would split all the way down this piece of wood. So if that happens, don't panic. Just tap the nail out and then get you some glue. This is actual wood glue, but it can be just Elmer's glue, or even like Crazy Glue would work fine. And what you can do is take your nail and kind of wedge this open so you've got some access in there, because you need to get the glue not on the top of it, but in between the two pieces of wood. And so you can put some glue on there. Heck, you might just leave the nail in. Put the nail in, let it stay all nice and split like that. Get some glue in it. Work from both sides because you have access to both sides. And then maybe take a toothpick or something and really get glue down in there all the way. Then you get the nail out. You may have to pry it out with the claw of your hammer. And if you have clamps of some kind, you can use those. You've got clamps all over there. You probably don't. So what you can do is just wipe off the excess glue with your finger, and if you're using mom's dinner table, don't do that. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to squeeze it closed and pull off some tape. Just regular old painter's tape, Scotch tape works just fine. And as you're squeezing it, you want to wrap it as tight as you can. Just like that. And then you just take it and set it aside, let the glue dry for a few hours. Then you can come back and do it again. With the hole already there from your original nail, it shouldn't split again, and the glue will hold the split closed. That's all you have to do. So here's your completed manger. At this point, you can do pretty much anything you want with it. You could paint it, obviously. You could stain it some color. There's all sorts of different stains. My wife likes a real dark brown stain on a lot of the projects that I do, so we use that a lot. You could put just a clear coat on it, some type of shellac, maybe polyurethane. They make spray-on ones that are real simple to use. You just give it a couple of coats of that to protect it from most of forever. You could do something real simple, just like an oil finish. There's Danish oil and Watco, what is it called? Watco oil? Something like that. They're all just real nice finishes, and basically at this point you can make it yours.